Hello and welcome, dear readers. My name is Michael Usher, and I'm absolutely thrilled you've decided to join me on what might be one of the most fascinating and potentially life-saving journeys you'll ever take. For over 2 decades, I've studied the remarkable relationships between animal behavior and natural disasters. I've traveled to earthquake zones, tsunami-affected coastlines, and volcanic regions where I've witnessed something extraordinary. Animals possess incredible abilities to predict natural disasters before they strike. Whether you're here out of curiosity, love for animals, or because you've witnessed strange pet behavior that seem to predict environmental changes, you're about to discover information that could literally save lives. The family dog that becomes restless before storms, the cat that hides before earthquakes, the birds that change behavior before severe weather. These aren't coincidences. They're part of nature's most sophisticated early warning system. This isn't folklore or superstition. Everything you'll read has been carefully researched and documented by scientists at prestigious institutions worldwide. You'll learn to recognize specific warning signs in pets, livestock, and wildlife that could give you precious advance warning of earthquakes, storms, and other disasters. Most importantly, this knowledge isn't just fascinating. It could be genuinely life-saving. By the time you finish this book, you'll understand how to read the signs that animals have been trying to share with us all along. So settle in and prepare to see the animal world around you in an entirely new light. Welcome to the amazing world of animals that predict disasters. Part 1. Opening and Hook. Picture this. It is the year 373 BC in the ancient Greek city of Hellas. The sun rises over the cobblestone streets as merchants prepare to open their shops and children play in the courtyards. But something is terribly wrong. The rats that usually scurry through the alleys are nowhere to be found. Snakes slither out from their underground hideouts in broad daylight, abandoning their dark sanctuaries. Weasels dart frantically through the streets, carrying their young as they flee the city. The animals are running, and they seem to know something that the humans do not. For 5 long days, this exodus continues. Dogs howl incessantly, their voices echoing through the empty streets. Cats pace nervously, refusing to eat. Even the farm animals outside the city walls display the same restless behavior. The people of Hellas watch in confusion as their animal companions act in ways they have never seen before. Some dismiss it as coincidence. Others begin to worry. On the 5th night, the earth beneath Hellas begins to tremble. What starts as a gentle vibration quickly escalates into a violent shaking that tears buildings apart and swallows entire neighborhoods. The devastating earthquake that strikes Hellas kills thousands of people and erases the city from the map forever. But the animals that fled 5 days earlier survive. They somehow knew what was coming. Fast forward over 2,000 years to February 1975 in Haicheng, China. Scientists and government officials notice something remarkable happening throughout the region. Snakes emerge from their winter hibernation and freeze to death on the surface, rather than staying safely underground. Horses refuse to enter their stables. Dogs bark continuously for hours without apparent reason. Pigs break out of their pens and run wild through the countryside. But this time, humans are paying attention. Chinese seismologists have been studying animal behavior as part of their earthquake prediction program. They recognize these signs as potential warnings of seismic activity. Based largely on these animal observations, along with other geological indicators, the government makes an unprecedented decision. They order the evacuation of over 90,000 people from Haicheng and surrounding areas. Hours after the evacuation is complete, a massive 7.3 magnitude earthquake strikes the region. Buildings collapse, infrastructure crumbles, and the landscape is forever changed. But because of the early warning provided partly by animal behavior, thousands of lives are saved. It becomes one of the most successful earthquake predictions in human history, and animals played a crucial role in making it possible. These stories raise profound questions that have fascinated scientists and researchers for centuries. How can animals sense natural disasters before they happen? What do they perceive that our sophisticated modern instruments cannot detect? Are these isolated incidents, or is there a deeper scientific truth hidden in the behavior of our animal companions? The answer lies in understanding that animals possess sensory abilities that far exceed our own. While humans have developed technology to detect earthquakes, predict weather patterns, and monitor volcanic activity, we are still learning to match the natural early warning systems that evolution has perfected over millions of years. Animals are not fortune tellers or mystical prophets. They are biological sensors equipped with extraordinary capabilities that allow them to detect changes in their environment long before these changes become apparent to human observers. Part 2. The science behind animal senses. The remarkable ability of animals to predict natural disasters stems from their extraordinary sensory capabilities that have been refined through millions of years of evolution. Unlike humans, who rely primarily on sight and sound, animals have developed a sophisticated array of sensory mechanisms that allow them to detect subtle changes in their environment that remain completely invisible to us. Understanding these biological sensors is crucial to comprehending how animals can serve as early warning systems for natural catastrophes. Consider the African elephant, a creature whose feet serve as remarkable seismic detection devices. These massive animals can sense vibrations traveling through the ground from distances of up to 50 kilometers away. Their feet are equipped with specialized cells called Pacinian corpuscles, which are exquisitely sensitive to mechanical pressure and vibration. When an earthquake begins, it generates two types of seismic waves. Primary waves, or P waves, travel faster than secondary waves, or S waves. While humans typically only notice the more destructive S waves, elephants can detect the subtle P waves that arrive first, giving them precious minutes or even hours of advance warning. The elephant's trunk also contains thousands of muscle units and nerve endings that can detect infrasonic vibrations traveling through the air. These low-frequency sound waves below the range of human hearing can travel vast distances with minimal interference. Elephants routinely use infrasound to communicate with other herds across the African savanna, but they can also detect these low-frequency vibrations generated by geological activity, severe weather systems, and other natural phenomena that precede disasters. Birds possess perhaps the most sophisticated natural navigation system on Earth, relying on their ability to sense magnetic fields for their remarkable migratory journeys. The magnetic sensors in bird brains, likely located in specialized cells containing magnetite crystals, allow them to perceive the Earth's magnetic field as a visible overlay on their normal vision. When geological activity disrupts local magnetic fields, as often happens before earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, birds immediately detect these changes. This explains why unusual bird behavior, including disorientation, abnormal flight patterns, and mass departures from an area, often precedes seismic events. Recent research has revealed that magnetic sensitivity is far more common in the animal kingdom than previously understood. Sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of open ocean using magnetic field detection, returning to the exact beaches where they were born decades earlier. Sharks use electroreception to detect the minute electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of their prey. But these same sensors can detect changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field that occur before geological events. Dogs and cats, our most common companion animals, possess hearing capabilities that extend well beyond human range. While humans can typically hear sounds between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz, dogs can detect frequencies up to 65,000 Hz, and cats can hear sounds up to 64,000 Hz. More importantly, for disaster prediction, both species can hear infrasonic frequencies below 20 Hz that are completely inaudible to humans. These low-frequency sounds are generated by a variety of natural phenomena, including the movement of tectonic plates, the formation of severe weather systems, and the underground movement of magma before volcanic eruptions. The ability to detect changes in atmospheric pressure gives many animals advance warning of weather-related disasters. Birds, with their lightweight bone structure and air-filled cavities, are particularly sensitive to barometric pressure changes. They can detect the approach of storm systems hours before human weather instruments register significant changes. This sensitivity allows migratory birds to adjust their flight plans to avoid dangerous weather and explains why local bird populations often disappear before major storms arrive. Marine animals possess specialized organs that make them extraordinarily sensitive to changes in water pressure, temperature, and chemical composition. Fish have lateral line systems that detect minute changes in water movement and pressure waves. These organs, which appear as visible lines along the sides of most fish species, contain thousands of sensory cells that can detect the approach of tsunamis through changes in underwater pressure waves that travel faster than the visible wave itself. Deep-sea creatures are particularly sensitive to seismic activity because sound travels more efficiently through water than through air. Whales and dolphins, with their sophisticated echolocation systems, can detect underwater earthquakes and volcanic activity from hundreds of miles away. Marine biologists have documented cases where deep-sea fish species that normally remain in the ocean depths suddenly appear in shallow coastal waters days before major seismic events, apparently fleeing from disturbances they can sense but humans cannot detect. The chemical sensitivity of many animals provides another early warning mechanism for natural disasters. Snakes, with their forked tongues and specialized vomeronasal organs, can detect minute changes in air chemistry that occur before earthquakes. The movement of tectonic plates often releases gases trapped in rock formations, including hydrogen sulfide, methane, and radon. These gases can be detected by animals with sensitive chemical receptors long before they reach concentrations that human instruments can measure. Even insects demonstrate remarkable sensitivity to environmental changes that precede natural disasters. Bees become agitated and may abandon their hives when they detect changes in electromagnetic fields or air chemistry. Ants alter their behavior patterns when they sense vibrations in the ground that indicate seismic activity. Some researchers have documented cases where ant colonies relocate entirely in the days before major earthquakes, apparently responding to subtle environmental cues that warn of coming danger. The scientific community has increasingly recognized that these animal behaviors represent a form of natural early warning system that has been operating for millions of years. Modern technology is beginning to match some of these capabilities, but animals still surpass our best instruments in many areas. Seismographs can detect earthquakes as they happen, but they cannot reliably predict when they will occur. Weather satellites can track storm systems, but they cannot match the advance warning provided by birds that sense atmospheric pressure changes days before storms develop. Research institutions around the world are now seriously studying animal behavior as a complement to traditional monitoring systems. The Max Planck Institute for Ornithology has developed sophisticated tracking systems that monitor the movement and behavior patterns of various animal species, looking for correlations with seismic and weather events. These studies have confirmed that many animals do indeed change their behavior patterns in predictable ways before natural disasters occur. The University of California at Davis has conducted extensive research on the behavior of farm animals before earthquakes, documenting changes in activity levels, feeding patterns, and social behaviors that consistently precede seismic events. Their findings suggest that a systematic monitoring system based on animal behavior could provide valuable supplementary information for earthquake prediction efforts. Japanese researchers have been particularly active in this field, partly due to their country's frequent exposure to earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. They have documented hundreds of cases where animal behavior provided advance warning of natural disasters, and they continue to develop technologies that can systematically monitor and interpret these biological signals. The emerging field of biomimetics seeks to understand and replicate the sensory capabilities of animals using artificial systems. Engineers are developing sensors inspired by elephant feet to detect seismic activity, artificial systems that mimic bird magnetic sensitivity for navigation, and chemical detectors based on the olfactory systems of dogs and other animals. However, these technological systems are still far from matching the sensitivity and reliability of their biological counterparts. Understanding the science behind animal disaster prediction capabilities opens up new possibilities for improving human safety and disaster preparedness. Rather than dismissing animal behavior as superstition or coincidence, we can learn to interpret these signals as valuable information about environmental conditions that our own senses cannot detect. The key is developing systematic approaches to monitoring and analyzing animal behavior patterns in ways that can complement our existing technological systems. Part 3. Earthquake Predictors. Throughout recorded history, the most extensively documented cases of animals predicting natural disasters involve earthquakes, and for good reason. Seismic events generate a complex array of physical phenomena that animals can detect long before the main earthquake strikes, making them remarkably effective early warning systems for these devastating geological events. Dogs and cats, being the most common companion animals worldwide, provide us with the most frequent and well-documented examples of earthquake prediction behavior. In the hours and days leading up to seismic events, dogs often display a characteristic pattern of behavioral changes that experienced observers have learned to recognize. They may become unusually restless, pacing continuously through the house, whining or barking without apparent cause, and showing reluctance to enter buildings or enclosed spaces. Some dogs become unusually clingy, following their owners everywhere, while others may try to lead their humans away from buildings or toward open areas. The 2009 earthquake in L'Aquila, Italy, provides a compelling case study of canine earthquake prediction. In the weeks leading up to the devastating 6.3 magnitude earthquake that killed over 300 people, residents throughout the region reported unusual behavior in their dogs. Local veterinarians noted a significant increase in anxiety-related visits, with dogs showing symptoms of extreme stress without any apparent medical cause. Many dogs refused to sleep indoors, preferring to stay outside even in cold weather. Others showed a complete loss of appetite or became destructively hyperactive. One particularly well-documented case involved a family dog named Max, a German shepherd who lived in the historic center of L'Aquila. For 2 weeks before the earthquake, Max refused to enter the family's apartment, instead choosing to sleep in the courtyard regardless of the weather. He would bark frantically whenever family members tried to bring him inside, and he began following the children to school each morning, something he had never done before. On the night of the earthquake, Max's behavior became so agitated that the family decided to sleep in their car. This decision likely saved their lives as their apartment building suffered severe structural damage in the earthquake. Cats demonstrate equally remarkable earthquake prediction abilities, though their responses often differ from those of dogs. Feline earthquake prediction behavior typically includes hiding in unusual places, excessive vocalization, and attempts to move their kittens or lead their owners to what they perceive as safer locations. Many cats become extremely agitated in the hours before an earthquake, racing through the house, climbing to high places, or trying to escape outside. The scientific explanation for these behaviors lies in the animal's ability to detect the various precursor phenomena that accompany earthquake development. As tectonic stress builds before a major earthquake, the Earth's crust undergoes subtle changes that generate detectable signals long before humans feel any shaking. These signals include primary seismic waves, changes in groundwater levels, release of gases from underground, alterations in electromagnetic fields, and variations in atmospheric pressure. Primary waves, or P waves, travel faster than the more destructive secondary waves that cause most earthquake damage. While sensitive seismographic equipment can detect these P waves, the vibrations are usually too subtle for humans to feel. However, many animals, particularly those that spend time in contact with the ground, can sense these preliminary vibrations. Dogs lying on the floor, cats sleeping in basements, and other animals in direct contact with the earth can feel the gentle trembling that precedes major seismic events. Snake behavior before earthquakes has been documented extensively, particularly in regions where these reptiles are common. Snakes typically respond to approaching seismic events by leaving their underground hibernation sites, even in the middle of winter when they would normally remain dormant. This behavior was notably observed before the 1975 Haicheng earthquake in China, where thousands of snakes emerged from hibernation in freezing weather and died on the surface rather than remaining safely underground. The mechanism behind this behavior relates to snakes' extraordinary sensitivity to ground vibrations and their ability to detect changes in soil chemistry. As tectonic pressure builds before an earthquake, underground rock formations release gases that can be toxic to animals in enclosed spaces. Snakes, with their sensitive chemical detection systems, may be responding to these dangerous gas concentrations by seeking surface refuge. Additionally, their ground-level position makes them among the first animals to detect the subtle vibrations that precede major earthquakes. Livestock behavior before earthquakes has been systematically studied on farms throughout seismically active regions. Cattle, horses, pigs, and sheep all demonstrate characteristic behavioral changes in the days and hours before seismic events. Horses often refuse to enter stables, becoming difficult to handle and showing signs of extreme nervousness. Cattle may refuse to enter barns for milking, or they may cluster together in open fields away from buildings. Pigs frequently break out of their enclosures and attempt to flee to higher ground or open areas. A particularly striking example occurred before the 1976 Tangshan earthquake in China, one of the deadliest seismic events in recorded history. In the days leading up to the earthquake, farmers throughout the region reported that their animals were acting strangely. Horses refused to stay in their stables, breaking free and running to open fields. Cows stopped producing milk and showed signs of extreme agitation. Pigs climbed over fences and barriers that had previously contained them, seemingly desperate to escape their enclosures. Farm dogs added to the chaos by herding livestock away from buildings and toward open ground, as if attempting to protect the animals from some unseen danger. Chickens refused to enter their coops, instead roosting in trees or on top of buildings. The widespread nature of these behavioral changes was so notable that some local officials began to take the animal warnings seriously, though unfortunately not in time to prevent the massive loss of life when the earthquake struck. Aquatic animals provide another fascinating category of earthquake predictors. Fish in ponds, lakes, and aquariums often display dramatic behavioral changes before seismic events. They may swim frantically at the surface, jump out of the water repeatedly, or school together in unusual patterns. Goldfish and other ornamental fish in home aquariums frequently become hyperactive, swimming erratically and showing signs of extreme distress. The 2011 earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan was preceded by numerous reports of unusual fish behavior. In the days before the disaster, fishermen noted that deep-sea fish species that normally remain far from shore were appearing in coastal waters. Some species that typically stay at great depths were found swimming near the surface, apparently fleeing from some disturbance in the deep ocean. Pet stores reported that aquarium fish throughout the region were showing signs of agitation, with many species displaying the kind of frantic swimming behavior typically associated with territorial disputes or predator presence. The scientific basis for fish earthquake prediction lies in their lateral line system, a series of sensory organs that detect changes in water pressure and movement. Fish use these organs to navigate, avoid predators, and locate prey, but they also make fish extraordinarily sensitive to the pressure waves generated by seismic activity. Underwater earthquakes and the geological processes that precede them create pressure waves that travel through water faster than through air or solid ground. Fish can detect these pressure changes long before the earthquake reaches the surface. Ground-dwelling animals such as rodents also demonstrate remarkable earthquake prediction abilities. Mice and rats often abandon their nests and burrows in the days before major seismic events, sometimes appearing in unusual numbers in areas where they are normally rarely seen. This mass migration behavior has been documented before numerous earthquakes throughout history and continues to be observed by researchers studying animal earthquake prediction. The behavior of burrowing animals makes particular sense when we understand the underground changes that precede earthquakes. As tectonic stress builds, underground water tables may shift, soil chemistry can change due to gas releases, and subtle ground vibrations may make underground spaces uncomfortable or dangerous for small animals. Rats and mice, with their sensitive hearing and vibration detection abilities, may be among the first to recognize that their underground habitats are becoming unsafe. Modern scientific research has begun to validate many of these traditional observations about animal earthquake prediction. Researchers in Germany have developed a comprehensive monitoring system that tracks the movement and behavior patterns of farm animals using GPS collars and activity sensors. Their preliminary results show statistically significant changes in animal behavior patterns in the hours before seismic events, with animals showing increased activity levels and altered movement patterns that correspond closely with earthquake timing. Similar research projects in Japan, Italy, and California are producing comparable results, lending scientific credibility to centuries of anecdotal observations about animal earthquake prediction. These studies suggest that systematic monitoring of animal behavior could provide a valuable supplement to traditional seismic monitoring systems, potentially offering additional warning time that could save lives and reduce property damage. The key to effective earthquake prediction using animal behavior lies in understanding that no single species or individual animal provides foolproof predictions. Instead, researchers are learning to look for patterns across multiple species and numerous individuals. When dogs, cats, horses, cattle, and wild animals in a region all begin showing stress behaviors simultaneously, this convergence of signals provides much stronger evidence of approaching seismic activity than isolated incidents involving individual animals. The challenge for scientists is developing systematic methods for collecting, analyzing, and interpreting these biological signals in ways that can complement existing earthquake monitoring technologies. While traditional seismographic networks excel at detecting earthquakes as they occur, they have limited ability to predict when earthquakes will happen. Animal behavior monitoring may help fill this critical gap, providing the advance warning that could make the difference between life and death for communities in seismically active regions. Part 4. Tsunami and water disasters. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami stands as one of the most devastating natural disasters in modern history, claiming over 230,000 lives across 14 countries. Yet amid the tragedy, countless stories emerged of animals whose behavior provided crucial early warnings that saved human lives. These accounts have fundamentally changed how scientists and disaster preparedness experts view the role of animal behavior in predicting water-related catastrophes. On the morning of December 26, 2004, tourists and locals along the beaches of Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and other coastal regions witnessed extraordinary animal behavior that many initially dismissed as curious, but ultimately proved to be life-saving warnings. The most famous account comes from Khao Lak Beach in Thailand, where a herd of elephants used for tourist rides suddenly became agitated and began trumpeting loudly. Despite their handlers' attempts to calm them, the elephants broke free from their chains and headed inland, away from the beach. Several tourists, including a British family, noticed that the elephants were not just running randomly, but seemed to be deliberately moving toward higher ground. Following their instincts and the elephants' lead, these tourists climbed onto the elephants' backs and were carried to safety on higher ground. Minutes later, the first tsunami wave struck the beach where they had been standing, destroying everything in its path. The elephants had sensed the approaching disaster through mechanisms that human technology had failed to detect, and their flight to safety became a rescue mission for the humans who trusted their instincts. Dogs throughout the affected regions displayed similarly prescient behavior in the hours and minutes before the tsunami waves arrived. On beaches across Thailand and Sri Lanka, dogs began barking frantically and attempting to drag their owners away from the water's edge. Many dogs that normally love playing in the surf refused to go near the ocean, instead running inland and encouraging their human companions to follow. In numerous documented cases, tourists who heeded their dogs' warnings and moved away from the beach survived, while those who ignored the animals' distress were caught in the devastating waves. The scientific explanation for these behaviors lies in animals' superior ability to detect the various physical phenomena that precede tsunami formation and arrival. When an underwater earthquake generates a tsunami, it creates a complex series of pressure waves that travel through both water and air at different speeds. While the visible tsunami wave travels at speeds of 400-500 miles per hour across open ocean, the initial pressure waves and infrasonic vibrations travel much faster, providing potential warning time for those capable of detecting them. Elephants, with their extraordinary infrasonic communication abilities, are particularly well equipped to detect tsunami approach. These massive animals routinely communicate across distances of several miles using infrasonic calls below the range of human hearing. The same sensory apparatus that allows them to hear distant elephant calls also enables them to detect the low-frequency pressure waves generated by approaching tsunami waves. Research has shown that elephants can detect infrasonic signals from distances of up to 6 miles, giving them significant advance warning of approaching water disasters. Marine mammals demonstrate perhaps the most sophisticated tsunami detection capabilities of any animal group. Whales and dolphins, with their advanced echolocation systems, can detect changes in underwater pressure and sound propagation that occur hours before tsunami waves reach coastal areas. In the days following the 2004 tsunami, marine biologists noted that whale and dolphin populations had moved away from coastal areas and into deeper waters well before the disaster struck. The behavior of coastal birds provides another crucial indicator of approaching water disasters. Seagulls, pelicans, and other shorebirds typically feed in shallow coastal waters and roost on beaches and nearby structures. Before the 2004 tsunami, observers noted that large flocks of these birds abandoned their normal feeding areas and flew inland, often congregating in unusual numbers at elevated locations miles from the coast. This mass migration occurred hours before the tsunami waves arrived, providing clear evidence that the birds had detected environmental changes that warned of approaching danger. The mechanism behind bird tsunami detection likely involves their sensitivity to atmospheric pressure changes and infrasonic vibrations. As tsunami waves approach coastlines, they create distinctive pressure signatures in the atmosphere above them. Birds, with their lightweight skeletal structure and air-filled bones, are extraordinarily sensitive to these pressure variations. Additionally, their acute hearing allows them to detect the infrasonic rumble generated by massive moving water masses, long before humans can hear anything unusual. Fish behavior in coastal waters provides another early warning system for tsunami events. In the hours before the 2004 tsunami struck, fishermen in several affected areas reported unusual fish behavior, including species that normally remain in deep water appearing in shallow coastal areas, and typically calm fish showing signs of extreme agitation. Some fishermen noted that fish were jumping out of the water more frequently than normal, and that schools of fish were swimming in erratic, seemingly panicked patterns. The lateral line system that allows fish to detect pressure changes in water makes them extremely sensitive to the pressure waves that precede tsunami arrival. Deep-sea fish species that suddenly appear in shallow water may be fleeing from pressure disturbances in their normal deep-water habitats. The erratic swimming behavior observed in coastal fish likely represents their response to the unusual pressure signatures created by approaching tsunami waves. Domestic animals in coastal communities also provided crucial warnings before the 2004 tsunami. Cats in beach communities began hiding in unusual places, often seeking elevated locations within buildings or climbing trees. Many cats that normally enjoyed outdoor activities refused to leave their homes, instead remaining hidden in interior rooms away from windows and doors. Dogs showed similar behavior, with many refusing to take their normal beach walks and instead pulling their owners away from waterfront areas. The behavior of farm animals in coastal regions added to the chorus of biological warnings. Water buffalo in Thailand and Sri Lanka became restless and agitated, refusing to graze in their normal pastures near the coast. Cattle moved to higher ground spontaneously, abandoning lower-lying fields for elevated pastures. Chickens stopped laying eggs and became unusually vocal, while goats and sheep clustered together and showed signs of extreme nervousness. One of the most remarkable aspects of animal tsunami prediction is the coordination across species. Unlike earthquake predictions, where individual species might show behavioral changes at different times, tsunami warnings seem to trigger simultaneous responses across multiple animal species. This synchronization suggests that the physical phenomena associated with approaching tsunamis create environmental changes that multiple species can detect using their various sensory capabilities. Research conducted after the 2004 tsunami has revealed the sophisticated nature of these animal warning systems. Scientists studying infrasonic propagation have determined that the low-frequency sound waves generated by approaching tsunami can travel hundreds of miles ahead of the visible waves, providing substantial warning time for animals capable of detecting these signals. The frequencies involved, typically between 0.01 and 20 Hz, are well within the detection range of many mammalian species but below the threshold of human hearing. The atmospheric pressure changes associated with approaching tsunami waves create another detection mechanism that many animals can utilize. As massive volumes of water move toward coastlines, they create pressure signatures in the overlying atmosphere that sensitive animals can detect. Research has shown that these pressure changes begin occurring when tsunami waves are still hundreds of miles from shore, potentially providing hours of advance warning. Ground vibrations transmitted through the Earth's crust provide yet another early warning mechanism. As tsunami waves approach shallow coastal waters, they begin interacting with the ocean floor, creating vibrations that travel through solid rock faster than the waves themselves travel through water. Animals that are sensitive to ground vibrations, including elephants with their sensitive feet and many burrowing species, can detect these precursor vibrations and respond accordingly. The chemical changes in coastal air that precede tsunami arrival may provide additional warning signals for animals with sensitive olfactory systems. The massive movement of ocean water can alter local humidity, salt content, and other atmospheric chemical signatures that animals may be able to detect. Dogs, with their extraordinary sense of smell, may be responding to these subtle chemical changes when they show avoidance behavior toward coastal areas. Modern tsunami warning systems rely primarily on seismic monitoring and deep ocean pressure sensors to detect tsunami generation and propagation. While these technological systems have improved significantly since 2004, they still cannot match the advanced warning provided by animal behavior in many situations. Seismic sensors can detect the earthquakes that generate tsunamis, but they cannot always predict which earthquakes will produce dangerous waves. Deep ocean sensors can confirm tsunami propagation, but they may not provide sufficient warning time for coastal communities. Animal behavior monitoring could provide a valuable supplement to existing tsunami warning systems, particularly for communities that lack access to sophisticated technological monitoring equipment. Training coastal communities to recognize and respond to animal warning signs could provide crucial additional warning time that saves lives. The key is educating people to recognize the patterns of behavior that indicate genuine disaster warnings rather than normal animal behavioral variations. The integration of animal behavior monitoring with technological tsunami warning systems represents a promising area for future research and development. Scientists are exploring ways to systematically monitor animal behavior in coastal regions using remote sensing technologies, automated behavioral analysis systems, and community-based observation networks. These efforts could eventually lead to comprehensive early warning systems that combine the best aspects of both biological and technological disaster detection methods. Part 5. Weather predictors. Long before meteorologists developed sophisticated satellite systems and computer modeling to predict weather patterns, humans observed that animals seem to possess an uncanny ability to anticipate changes in atmospheric conditions. This folk wisdom, passed down through generations of farmers, sailors, and outdoor workers, has proven to contain substantial scientific truth as researchers have begun to understand the remarkable weather-sensing capabilities of various animal species. Birds represent perhaps the most accomplished natural meteorologists in the animal kingdom, possessing multiple sensory systems that allow them to detect approaching weather changes days before human instruments register significant atmospheric shifts. Their lightweight bone structure, filled with air cavities that make flight possible, also makes them extraordinarily sensitive to changes in atmospheric pressure. When low-pressure systems approach, bringing the potential for storms, winds, and precipitation, birds can feel these pressure changes in their bones and air sacs long before barometric pressure readings show significant variations. Migratory birds demonstrate the most spectacular examples of weather prediction behavior. These remarkable creatures must navigate thousands of miles across continents and oceans, timing their journeys to take advantage of favorable weather conditions while avoiding dangerous storms. Research has shown that migrating birds can detect the approach of major weather systems from distances of hundreds of miles, allowing them to adjust their flight paths, delay departures, or accelerate their travel to avoid hazardous conditions. The twice-yearly migration of Arctic terns provides a stunning example of avian weather prediction in action. These incredible birds make the longest migration of any animal on Earth, traveling roughly 44,000 miles annually between their Arctic breeding grounds and Antarctic wintering areas. Throughout this epic journey, they must constantly evaluate weather conditions to avoid storms, take advantage of favorable winds, and locate the thermal updrafts that make long-distance flight possible. Scientists studying Arctic tern migration have discovered that these birds can detect the formation of low-pressure systems while they are still hundreds of miles away. When satellite weather data is compared with bird tracking information, researchers find that terns consistently alter their flight paths to avoid areas where storms will develop 24 to 48 hours later. This predictive ability allows them to navigate around weather systems that haven't even fully formed yet, demonstrating weather forecasting capabilities that exceed many technological systems. Local bird populations provide equally impressive examples of short-term weather prediction. Songbirds, crows, and other resident species often change their behavior patterns in the hours before significant weather events. They may increase their feeding activity dramatically, gathering and storing extra food before storms arrive. Many species seek shelter in dense vegetation or protected areas well before precipitation begins. Others alter their normal daily routines, becoming active at unusual times or modifying their territorial behaviors in response to approaching weather changes. The European starling, a species known for its complex flocking behavior, demonstrates remarkable collective weather prediction abilities. These birds form massive murmurations, swirling clouds of thousands of individuals that move in perfect synchronization across the sky. Research has shown that these flocking behaviors intensify before major weather events, with larger groups forming and more dramatic aerial displays occurring in the 24 to 48 hours before storms arrive. The synchronized movement of these huge flocks appears to be partly driven by the birds' collective response to atmospheric pressure changes that signal approaching weather systems. Cattle and other grazing animals have long been recognized as reliable weather predictors by farmers and ranchers who depend on understanding atmospheric conditions for successful agricultural operations. The familiar saying that cows lie down when rain is coming has substantial scientific basis. Cattle are sensitive to the decrease in atmospheric pressure that accompanies approaching storm systems. When they sense these pressure changes, they often seek comfortable resting positions before conditions become unpleasant, explaining the observed correlation between cattle lying down and subsequent precipitation. Beyond their pressure sensitivity, cattle and other large mammals can detect the changes in humidity and electromagnetic fields that precede weather events. Their large body size makes them effective biological barometers, and their behavior reflects the atmospheric changes they sense. Before thunderstorms, cattle often group together and move to elevated or sheltered areas, apparently responding to the electromagnetic disturbances associated with electrical storm development. Horses demonstrate even more sophisticated weather prediction behaviors, showing sensitivity not only to atmospheric pressure and humidity changes, but also to the subtle electromagnetic disturbances that accompany severe weather development. Before thunderstorms, horses often become restless, pacing in their paddocks, whinnying more frequently, and showing signs of nervousness that experienced horse handlers recognize as storm warnings. Their behavior typically intensifies as storms approach, with the most dramatic reactions occurring in the hours immediately before lightning and thunder begin. The electromagnetic sensitivity of horses may be related to their evolution as prey animals on open grasslands, where the ability to detect approaching storms would provide crucial survival advantages. Thunderstorms generate powerful electromagnetic fields that can be detected by sensitive animals hours before the visible signs of the storm appear. Horses may be responding to these electromagnetic signatures when they show pre-storm anxiety and restlessness. Domestic cats and dogs provide weather prediction services for millions of households worldwide, though their forecasting abilities are often dismissed as coincidence or attributed to their sensitivity to their owner's behavior. Scientific research has revealed that both species possess weather-sensing capabilities that allow them to anticipate atmospheric changes with remarkable accuracy. Cats are particularly sensitive to atmospheric pressure changes due to their inner ear structure, which helps them maintain balance and spatial orientation. When atmospheric pressure drops before storms, many cats experience a sensation similar to the discomfort humans feel when flying in aircraft or driving through mountains. This pressure sensitivity causes many cats to seek enclosed, protected spaces before storms arrive, often hiding in closets, under beds, or in basements hours before precipitation begins. Dogs demonstrate weather prediction through multiple sensory channels. Their acute hearing allows them to detect the low-frequency rumbles of distant thunder long before human ears can perceive these sounds. Their superior sense of smell enables them to detect the distinctive odors associated with approaching precipitation, including the ozone scent that accompanies electrical activity and the earthy smell of rain on soil that can be carried by winds ahead of storm systems. Many dog owners report that their pets become restless, pace anxiously, or seek comfort from humans in the hours before thunderstorms arrive. Some dogs show more specific behaviors, such as refusing to go outside for walks, hiding in interior rooms, or attempting to dig or scratch at floors and walls. These behaviors likely represent the dog's responses to the combination of pressure changes, electromagnetic disturbances, and auditory signals that accompany approaching storms. Insects provide some of the most precise short-term weather predictions available in the natural world. Bees, ants, and other social insects have evolved sophisticated systems for monitoring atmospheric conditions because weather changes can threaten their colonies and disrupt their carefully organized activities. Honeybees are legendary for their weather prediction abilities. Experienced beekeepers know that bees reduce their foraging activities and return to their hives before storms arrive, often clustering together in defensive formations that help protect the colony from adverse conditions. Research has shown that bees can detect the pressure changes, humidity variations, and electromagnetic disturbances associated with approaching weather systems hours before human instruments register significant changes. The behavior of bees before storms involves multiple levels of colony organization. Individual worker bees become less willing to venture far from the hive, instead focusing on activities close to home. Guard bees increase their vigilance at hive entrances, apparently preparing for defensive measures against the challenging conditions ahead. The entire colony may alter its daily rhythm, with normal foraging patterns disrupted as the bees collectively prepare for the approaching weather event. Ants demonstrate equally impressive weather prediction capabilities, often dramatically altering their behavior patterns before significant atmospheric changes. Many ant species increase their nest construction activities before storms, working frantically to reinforce their underground homes against flooding and other weather-related threats. Some species relocate their entire colonies to higher ground or more protected locations days before major storms arrive. The social organization of ant colonies makes them particularly effective weather prediction systems. Individual ants that detect environmental changes communicate this information to other colony members through chemical signals called pheromones. These chemical messages can rapidly spread throughout entire colonies, creating coordinated responses to approaching weather threats that involve thousands or millions of individuals working together for collective protection. Spiders provide another fascinating example of insect weather prediction. Though their responses are often more dramatic and easily observable than those of social insects. Many spider species tear down their webs before storms arrive, apparently anticipating the wind and rain that retrieve continue edit would destroy their carefully constructed traps. This behavior represents a significant investment decision for spiders, as web construction requires substantial energy and time. The fact that they willingly destroy their webs hours before storms arrive demonstrates their ability to accurately predict weather changes that would make web maintenance impossible. The orb weaver spiders common in gardens and forests throughout the world show particularly dramatic pre-storm behavior. These spiders typically construct new webs each evening, positioning them to catch flying insects in areas with optimal wind patterns and flight paths. Before major storms, however, orb weavers often skip their normal web-building activities entirely, instead seeking shelter in protected locations where they remain until conditions improve. Research into spider weather prediction has revealed that these arachnids respond to multiple atmospheric cues. They appear sensitive to changes in humidity that precede precipitation, alterations in air pressure that accompany storm systems, and possibly even the electromagnetic disturbances associated with thunderstorm development. Their ability to integrate these various environmental signals into accurate weather predictions rivals that of much larger and more complex animals. Marine animals provide weather prediction services that are particularly valuable for coastal communities and maritime activities. Dolphins and whales, with their sophisticated echolocation systems and pressure-sensitive organs, can detect the underwater pressure waves generated by surface weather systems long before these storms become visible to human observers. Commercial fishermen have long recognized that dolphin behavior provides reliable indicators of approaching weather changes. When dolphins are observed swimming in unusual patterns, diving deeper than normal, or moving away from their typical feeding areas, experienced mariners interpret these signs as warnings of deteriorating weather conditions. The dolphin's ability to detect underwater pressure changes caused by surface weather systems gives them advance warning that allows them to seek safer waters before conditions become dangerous. Seabirds provide equally valuable weather prediction services for maritime activities. Pelicans, gulls, and other coastal species alter their feeding and roosting behaviors hours before storms affect their marine habitats. They may abandon their normal fishing areas and move to protected coastal locations, or they may increase their feeding activity dramatically as they prepare for periods when weather conditions will make hunting impossible. The behavior of seabirds during the approach of hurricanes and other major storm systems provides particularly dramatic examples of avian weather prediction. As these massive weather systems approach coastlines, seabirds often flee hundreds of miles inland, seeking shelter in areas that will be protected from the storm's destructive winds and storm surges. This mass evacuation of coastal bird populations often occurs days before human weather services issue evacuation orders for coastal communities. Wild animals in terrestrial environments demonstrate equally impressive weather prediction capabilities that have been observed and documented by naturalists, hunters, and wildlife researchers for centuries. Deer, elk, and other large mammals often alter their feeding and movement patterns before major weather events. They may increase their feeding activity to build energy reserves, move to more sheltered locations, or change their daily activity patterns to avoid the worst effects of approaching storms. Squirrels and other small mammals show dramatic behavioral changes before severe weather arrives. Tree squirrels often increase their food-gathering activities dramatically in the days before major storms, working frantically to collect and store nuts, seeds, and other food resources that will sustain them during periods when foraging becomes impossible. They may also modify their nest construction activities, reinforcing their homes against wind and precipitation, or building additional shelter in more protected locations. Ground-dwelling mammals such as rabbits, woodchucks, and other burrowing species often retreat to their underground homes hours before storms arrive, apparently sensing atmospheric changes that warn of approaching adverse conditions. Their underground lifestyle makes them sensitive to changes in soil moisture, temperature, and pressure that accompany weather system development. Reptiles and amphibians demonstrate weather prediction capabilities that are particularly impressive given their relatively simple nervous systems compared to mammals and birds. Frogs and toads often increase their vocal activities dramatically before rain arrives, creating choruses that can be heard from considerable distances. This behavior serves dual purposes. It helps them locate mates during the brief periods when conditions are optimal for reproduction, and it may also serve as a community warning system about changing environmental conditions. Snakes show weather prediction behaviors that are easily observed by people who live in areas where these reptiles are common. Many snake species become more active before storms, apparently taking advantage of the increased prey activity that often precedes weather changes. Others seek shelter in protected locations, coiling in dense vegetation or underground retreats hours before adverse conditions develop. Lizards demonstrate particularly dramatic responses to approaching weather changes, often disappearing from their normal basking locations and activity areas hours before storms arrive. Their ectothermic physiology makes them sensitive to the temperature and humidity changes that accompany weather system development, and their behavior reflects their need to find suitable microhabitats that will protect them from adverse conditions. The integration of animal weather prediction observations with modern meteorological science represents an exciting frontier in atmospheric research. Scientists are beginning to develop systematic approaches to monitoring and interpreting animal behavior patterns that could supplement traditional weather forecasting methods. These biological weather prediction systems could be particularly valuable in remote areas where technological weather monitoring infrastructure is limited or unreliable. Research projects in various parts of the world are exploring the potential for developing comprehensive animal-based weather monitoring networks. These systems would combine observations from multiple species with automated monitoring technologies to create early warning systems for severe weather events. The goal is not to replace existing meteorological systems, but to supplement them with biological indicators that might provide additional warning time or more localized predictions than current technologies can offer. The challenge for scientists working in this field is developing standardized methods for observing, recording, and interpreting animal weather prediction behaviors. Unlike laboratory experiments where conditions can be controlled, animal weather prediction occurs in natural environments where multiple variables influence behavior simultaneously. Researchers must learn to distinguish between weather-related behavioral changes and responses to other environmental factors, such as predator presence, food availability, or social interactions. Modern technology is beginning to provide tools that could make systematic animal weather monitoring more feasible. GPS tracking systems, automated behavioral monitoring devices, and remote sensing technologies could allow researchers to monitor animal behavior patterns continuously and correlate these observations with detailed atmospheric data. These technological approaches could eventually lead to the development of biological weather prediction systems that rival or exceed the accuracy of purely technological forecasting methods. The traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and rural communities around the world contains extensive information about animal weather prediction that has been accumulated over many generations. This knowledge represents a valuable resource for scientists seeking to understand and utilize biological weather forecasting capabilities. Collaborative research projects that combine traditional ecological knowledge with modern scientific methods could lead to significant advances in weather prediction capabilities. Part 6. Volcanic eruptions. Volcanic eruptions represent some of the most dramatic and dangerous natural disasters on Earth, and throughout history, animals have demonstrated remarkable abilities to detect the precursor signs of these catastrophic events. The behavior of animals before volcanic eruptions provides some of the most compelling evidence for biological disaster prediction, as the complex geological processes that precede eruptions generate multiple environmental changes that sensitive animals can detect long before human instruments register significant variations. The 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington state provides one of the most thoroughly documented cases of animal volcanic prediction in modern scientific history. In the weeks and months leading up to the catastrophic explosion that killed 57 people and devastated 230 square miles of forest, researchers and local residents observed widespread changes in animal behavior throughout the region surrounding the volcano. Wildlife biologists studying the area noted that elk and deer populations began moving away from the mountain slopes months before the eruption occurred. These large mammals, which normally remained in their established territories throughout the year, suddenly began migrating to areas dozens of miles away from the volcano. Radio-collared animals that had been tracked for years as part of ongoing research projects showed dramatic changes in their movement patterns, abandoning ranges they had occupied for multiple seasons and relocating to distant areas. Small mammals showed equally dramatic responses to the approaching volcanic activity. Researchers conducting routine population surveys in the forests around Mount St. Helens observed that rodent populations in the areas closest to the volcano declined dramatically in the months before the eruption. Live trapping studies revealed that mice, voles, and other small mammals had apparently abandoned their territories near the mountain, leaving behind established burrow systems and food caches that represented significant investments of time and energy. Birds provided some of the most obvious signs of the approaching eruption, with multiple species showing behavioral changes that local observers found alarming. Migratory species that normally nested in the forests around Mount St. Helens failed to return to their traditional breeding areas in the spring of 1980. Resident bird populations showed signs of stress and agitation, with increased territorial disputes, unusual vocalizations, and altered feeding patterns observed throughout the region. The scientific explanation for these animal responses lies in the complex array of environmental changes that occur as volcanic systems become active. Months before visible eruptions begin, underground magma movement creates seismic activity that sensitive animals can detect. These micro-earthquakes, often too small for human instruments to register clearly, generate vibrations that travel through the ground and can be sensed by animals that spend time in contact with the Earth's surface. Volcanic systems also release gases as magma approaches the surface, creating changes in soil and air chemistry that animals with sensitive olfactory systems can detect. Hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and other volcanic gases often begin escaping through soil and rock fractures weeks or months before eruptions become visible. These gases can be toxic to animals in high concentrations, providing a strong evolutionary incentive for creatures to detect and avoid areas where gas emissions are increasing. The case of Mount Vesuvius in Italy provides another compelling example of animal volcanic prediction. with historical accounts dating back nearly 2,000 years, documenting consistent patterns of animal behavior before eruptions. The famous eruption of 79 AD that destroyed Pompeii and Herculaneum was preceded by weeks of unusual animal behavior that contemporary observers noted, but unfortunately did not fully understand. Modern research around Mount Vesuvius has revealed that animals in the region continue to demonstrate predictive behavior before periods of increased volcanic activity. Dogs and cats in communities near the volcano show increased anxiety and restlessness during periods when seismic monitoring equipment registers elevated activity. Farm animals become difficult to manage, refusing to graze in areas where they normally feed, and showing signs of stress that veterinarians cannot attribute to disease or other obvious causes. The mechanism behind animal detection of volcanic activity involves multiple sensory pathways that different species utilize to varying degrees. Ground-dwelling animals such as snakes, lizards, and burrowing mammals are particularly sensitive to the seismic vibrations generated by underground magma movement. Their close contact with the ground allows them to detect subtle tremors and vibrations that larger animals might miss. Underground-dwelling creatures such as moles and other fossorial species often show dramatic behavioral changes before volcanic eruptions. These animals spend their entire lives in intimate contact with soil and rock, making them extremely sensitive to changes in ground temperature, humidity, and chemical composition that occur as volcanic systems become active. Moles may abandon their established tunnel systems, appearing above ground in unusual numbers as they flee from underground disturbances they can sense but humans cannot detect. The temperature changes associated with volcanic activity provide another detection mechanism that many animals can utilize. As magma approaches the surface, it heats the surrounding rock and soil, creating temperature gradients that extend for considerable distances from the volcanic source. Animals that are sensitive to temperature variations, including many reptile species, may respond to these thermal changes by altering their behavior patterns or relocating to areas with more suitable temperatures. Birds demonstrate particularly sophisticated responses to volcanic activity, utilizing multiple sensory systems to detect the environmental changes associated with approaching eruptions. Their ability to fly gives them access to atmospheric information that ground-dwelling animals cannot obtain, allowing them to detect changes in air quality, atmospheric pressure, and electromagnetic fields that accompany volcanic activity. The electromagnetic disturbances associated with volcanic systems provide a detection mechanism that is particularly important for birds and other animals that navigate using magnetic field sensitivity. Volcanic activity can disrupt local magnetic fields, creating navigation difficulties for migratory species and potentially triggering behavioral changes in resident populations that rely on magnetic orientation for daily activities. Domestic animals living near volcanoes often provide the most accessible and observable examples of volcanic prediction behavior. Dogs and cats in volcanic regions frequently show anxiety and restlessness before periods of increased activity, displaying behaviors similar to those observed before earthquakes, but often persisting for longer periods as volcanic systems typically develop more gradually than seismic events. Livestock in volcanic areas demonstrate behavioral changes that experienced farmers and ranchers learn to recognize as potential warnings of increased volcanic activity. Cattle may refuse to graze in certain areas, showing apparent reluctance to remain in locations where gas emissions or ground heating has increased. Horses become difficult to handle, showing signs of nervousness and agitation that their handlers cannot attribute to normal causes. The 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines provided modern researchers with an opportunity to study animal volcanic prediction under controlled scientific conditions. International teams of volcanologists and animal behaviorists worked together to document the responses of various species to the developing volcanic crisis, creating one of the most comprehensive studies of biological volcanic prediction ever conducted. In the months leading up to the Mount Pinatubo eruption, researchers documented widespread changes in animal behavior throughout the region. Wild pig populations that normally remained in the forested slopes of the volcano began moving to lower elevations, abandoning their traditional territories for areas farther from the mountain. Monkey populations showed similar patterns, with troops relocating to areas dozens of kilometers away from their established ranges. Domestic animals throughout the region showed consistent patterns of stress and behavioral changes that correlated closely with the increasing levels of seismic and gas emission activity detected by scientific instruments. The correlation between animal behavior changes and instrumental measurements provided strong scientific support for the validity of biological volcanic prediction. The 2010 eruption of Eyjafjallajökull in Iceland offered another opportunity for systematic study of animal volcanic prediction. Though the remote location of the volcano limited the variety of species available for observation, researchers studying the region's sheep populations noted significant changes in grazing patterns and flock movements in the weeks before the eruption began, with animals avoiding areas that later proved to be directly affected by ash and gas emissions. Marine animals near volcanic islands demonstrate equally impressive prediction capabilities, responding to underwater volcanic activity that precedes above-surface eruptions. Fish populations near underwater volcanic vents often show dramatic behavioral changes, with some species fleeing the area entirely, while others alter their normal feeding and breeding patterns in response to changes in water temperature and chemistry. The case of Krakatoa, the Indonesian volcanic island that exploded catastrophically in 1883, provides historical documentation of animal volcanic prediction on a massive scale. Survivors' accounts from neighboring islands described weeks of unusual animal behavior before the final devastating eruption, with birds abandoning their normal territories, marine life showing signs of distress, and domestic animals displaying extreme agitation. Modern research has revealed that the mechanisms underlying animal volcanic prediction are more complex and sophisticated than previously understood. Animals appear to integrate information from multiple sensory sources, including seismic vibrations, chemical emissions, temperature changes, and electromagnetic disturbances, to assess the level of volcanic threat in their environment. This multisensory approach allows them to distinguish between minor volcanic activity that poses no immediate danger and the more serious precursor signs that indicate major eruptions are approaching. The challenge for scientists seeking to utilize animal volcanic prediction lies in developing systematic methods for monitoring and interpreting biological signals in ways that can supplement traditional volcanic monitoring technologies. While instrumental monitoring systems excel at detecting and measuring specific physical parameters associated with volcanic activity, they may miss subtle environmental changes that animals can detect through their biological sensory systems. Current research efforts are focusing on developing integrated monitoring approaches that combine traditional volcanological instruments with systematic animal behavior observation networks. These hybrid systems could potentially provide earlier warning of volcanic eruptions than either approach could achieve independently, offering communities near active volcanoes crucial additional time for evacuation and disaster preparation. The integration of animal behavior monitoring with technological volcanic surveillance systems represents a promising direction for improving volcanic hazard mitigation. By learning to interpret the biological signals that animals provide, scientists may be able to develop more comprehensive and reliable volcanic prediction capabilities that could save thousands of lives in future eruptions. Part 7. Modern Applications. The integration of animal behavior monitoring with modern technology represents one of the most exciting frontiers in natural disaster prediction research. Scientists around the world are developing sophisticated systems that combine the biological early warning capabilities of animals with advanced technological monitoring and data analysis methods. These hybrid approaches are beginning to demonstrate prediction capabilities that exceed what either biological or technological systems can achieve independently. The Max Planck Institute for Ornithology in Germany has pioneered one of the most comprehensive animal tracking and disaster prediction research programs currently in operation. Their International Cooperation for Animal Research Using Space Initiative, known as ICARUS, represents a revolutionary approach to understanding animal behavior through satellite-based monitoring systems that can track thousands of individual animals simultaneously across vast geographical areas. The ICARUS system utilizes miniaturized GPS transmitters and sophisticated sensor packages that monitor not only animal location, but also their activity levels, body temperature, heart rate, and other physiological parameters that can indicate stress or unusual behavior. These biologgers, weighing as little as 5 grams, can be attached to birds, mammals, and other animals without significantly affecting their natural behavior patterns. The data collected by these devices is transmitted to satellites and then relayed to research stations where sophisticated artificial intelligence systems analyze the information for patterns that might indicate approaching natural disasters. Initial results from the calmest project have been remarkably promising. Researchers have documented cases where farm animals equipped with monitoring devices showed statistically significant changes in their activity patterns hours before seismic events occurred in their regions. The system has detected behavioral changes in animal populations that preceded earthquakes by periods ranging from several hours to several days, providing advance warning that could be invaluable for disaster preparation efforts. The German farm animal monitoring component of the research has proven particularly successful. Scientists have equipped cattle, sheep, and goats on farms throughout seismically active regions of Europe with GPS collars and activity monitors that record their movements and behavior patterns continuously. The data analysis systems look for unusual patterns such as increased restlessness, changes in feeding behavior, alterations in sleep patterns, and modifications in social interactions that might indicate the animals are detecting environmental changes associated with approaching earthquakes. One of the most significant advantages of the technological approach to animal behavior monitoring is its ability to detect subtle changes that human observers might miss. While traditional animal behavior observation relies on people noticing and reporting unusual animal activities, automated monitoring systems can detect statistical variations in behavior patterns that might be invisible to casual observation. These systems can also monitor animals continuously, providing coverage during nighttime hours and in remote locations where human observers are not present. The University of California at Davis has developed a complementary approach to animal disaster prediction that focuses specifically on earthquake prediction using farm animal behavior. Their research team has created a network of sensors that monitor livestock behavior on farms throughout California's seismically active regions. The system tracks activity levels, feeding patterns, and social behaviors of cattle, horses, and other farm animals, looking for behavioral changes that correlate with seismic activity. The UC Davis research has revealed that different animal species show distinct behavioral signatures before earthquakes, with some animals becoming more active while others become less active, and various species showing peak behavioral changes at different time intervals before seismic events. This diversity in animal responses suggests that monitoring multiple species simultaneously could provide more reliable earthquake prediction than monitoring any single species alone. Japanese researchers have developed perhaps the most comprehensive animal-based disaster prediction system currently in operation, driven by their country's frequent exposure to earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. The Japanese system combines traditional animal behavior observation with modern sensor technology and artificial intelligence analysis to create an integrated early warning network that supplements their existing technological disaster monitoring infrastructure. The Japanese approach includes systematic monitoring of catfish behavior in aquariums and research facilities throughout the country. Catfish have been recognized in Japanese folklore for centuries as earthquake predictors, and modern research has confirmed that these fish do indeed show behavioral changes before seismic events. Automated video monitoring systems observe catfish activity levels continuously, using computer vision algorithms to detect unusual swimming patterns, feeding behavior, and social interactions that might indicate approaching earthquakes. Beyond catfish monitoring, the Japanese system includes networks of sensors that track the behavior of various animal species in zoos, research facilities, and natural habitats throughout the country. The data from these biological monitoring systems is integrated with information from traditional seismographic networks, creating a comprehensive disaster prediction capability that utilizes both technological and biological early warning mechanisms. Chinese researchers have made significant contributions to animal disaster prediction technology, building on their country's historical experience with using animal behavior for earthquake prediction. Modern Chinese research focuses on developing automated systems that can monitor animal behavior in urban environments, where traditional observation methods are impractical due to the complexity and scale of metropolitan areas. One innovative Chinese approach involves monitoring the behavior of urban bird populations using acoustic analysis systems that can detect changes in bird vocalizations and activity patterns. These systems use arrays of sensitive microphones and artificial intelligence algorithms to analyze the sounds produced by urban bird communities, looking for variations in vocal activity, song patterns, and flight behavior that might indicate approaching natural disasters. The acoustic monitoring approach has proven particularly effective because it can cover large urban areas with relatively few sensor installations, and it can detect behavioral changes in animal populations that would be impossible to monitor through direct observation in dense urban environments. The system has successfully detected bird behavior changes that preceded several moderate earthquakes in Chinese cities, suggesting that urban wildlife may provide disaster prediction capabilities even in heavily developed areas. Israeli researchers have developed specialized systems for monitoring animal behavior in arid and desert environments, where traditional disaster prediction technologies may be less effective due to the sparse population and challenging environmental conditions. Their approach focuses on monitoring the behavior of desert-adapted species such as lizards, rodents, and birds that have evolved sophisticated sensory capabilities for surviving in harsh environments. The Israeli desert monitoring systems use solar-powered sensor networks that can operate independently for extended periods without maintenance. These systems track animal movement patterns using passive infrared sensors, acoustic monitoring devices, and other technologies that can detect animal activity without requiring direct contact with the animals themselves. The approach has proven effective for monitoring large areas with minimal infrastructure requirements, making it potentially valuable for disaster prediction in remote regions worldwide. European researchers have explored the potential for using domestic pets as disaster prediction sensors in urban environments. Their research focuses on developing smartphone applications and wearable devices that pet owners can use to monitor their dogs and cats for behavioral changes that might indicate approaching natural disasters. The system relies on crowdsourced data collection, with thousands of pet owners contributing information about their animals' behavior patterns to a central database that can be analyzed for disaster prediction signals. The pet monitoring approach has several advantages over traditional animal behavior research. It provides access to large numbers of animals distributed throughout urban areas. It takes advantage of the close relationships between pets and their owners to detect subtle behavioral changes, and it creates a distributed monitoring network that requires minimal infrastructure investment. Preliminary results suggest that the system can detect behavioral changes in urban pet populations that precede seismic events, though the challenge lies in distinguishing disaster-related behavioral changes from the many other factors that influence pet behavior in urban environments. Artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies are playing increasingly important roles in animal disaster prediction research. These systems can analyze vast amounts of behavioral data from multiple species and geographical locations, identifying patterns and correlations that would be impossible for human researchers to detect manually. Machine learning algorithms can be trained to recognize the specific behavioral signatures associated with different types of natural disasters, potentially allowing for more accurate and reliable prediction capabilities. One of the most promising applications of artificial intelligence in animal disaster prediction involves the development of neural networks that can integrate data from multiple animal species, environmental sensors, and traditional disaster monitoring systems. These integrated analysis systems can potentially detect disaster precursor signals that might be missed by any single monitoring approach, creating more comprehensive and reliable early warning capabilities. The challenge of false alarms represents one of the most significant obstacles to implementing animal-based disaster prediction systems. Animals respond to many environmental factors beyond natural disasters, including weather changes, human activities, predator presence, and seasonal variations. Distinguishing between disaster-related behavioral changes and responses to other environmental factors requires sophisticated analysis techniques and extensive historical data for comparison. Researchers are addressing the false alarm problem through several approaches. One strategy involves monitoring multiple animal species simultaneously, looking for behavioral changes that affect numerous species at the same time, which is more likely to indicate genuine disaster precursors than changes affecting only single species. Another approach focuses on identifying specific behavioral signatures that are uniquely associated with disaster precursors rather than other environmental factors. The integration of animal behavior data with traditional disaster monitoring technologies offers another promising approach to reducing false alarms. By combining biological early warning signals with data from seismographs, weather monitoring systems, and other technological sensors, researchers can create more robust prediction systems that require confirmation from multiple independent sources before issuing disaster warnings. Economic considerations play an important role in the development and implementation of animal disaster prediction systems. While the potential benefits of improved disaster prediction are enormous, the costs of developing and maintaining comprehensive animal monitoring networks must be weighed against the resources required for traditional disaster monitoring approaches. The challenge for researchers is developing cost-effective systems that can provide valuable disaster prediction capabilities without requiring prohibitive investments in infrastructure and maintenance. The crowdsourcing approach to animal behavior monitoring offers one potential solution to the economic challenge. By engaging citizen scientists, pet owners, farmers, and other members of the public in data collection efforts, researchers can create extensive monitoring networks without the costs associated with deploying and maintaining large numbers of automated sensors. These community-based monitoring systems can potentially provide disaster prediction capabilities at a fraction of the cost of purely technological approaches. Part 8. Closing and Call to Action. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration into the remarkable world of animals that predict natural disasters, we find ourselves at a fascinating intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. The stories we have examined, from the fleeing animals of ancient Hellas to the modern technological systems that monitor farm animal behavior in real time, reveal a consistent truth that spans millennia. Animals possess extraordinary abilities to detect environmental changes that precede natural disasters, and these abilities represent a largely untapped resource for improving human safety and disaster preparedness. The scientific evidence we have reviewed demonstrates conclusively that animal disaster prediction is not folklore or superstition, but rather a legitimate biological phenomenon based on sensory capabilities that evolution has refined over millions of years. Elephants detecting seismic vibrations through their feet, birds sensing atmospheric pressure changes in their hollow bones, dogs hearing infrasonic frequencies that warn of approaching storms, and countless other examples show us that the animal kingdom possesses a sophisticated early warning network that operates continuously around the globe. What makes this biological disaster prediction system particularly remarkable is its redundancy and reliability. Unlike technological monitoring systems that can fail due to power outages, equipment malfunctions, or maintenance issues, biological systems are self-maintaining and self-repairing. Animals must eat, sleep, and survive in their environments every day, which means their sensory systems are constantly active and continuously calibrated to detect the environmental changes that might threaten their survival. The integration of animal behavior monitoring with modern technology represents one of the most promising developments in disaster prediction science. The German Icarus satellite system that tracks animal behavior across vast geographical areas, the Japanese networks that monitor catfish activity for earthquake prediction, the Chinese systems that analyze urban bird vocalizations for seismic warnings, and similar projects around the world demonstrate that we are entering a new era of disaster prediction that combines the best aspects of biological and technological monitoring systems. Yet for all the sophisticated technology being developed, some of the most valuable disaster prediction information may be available right in our own homes and communities. The family dog that becomes restless before thunderstorms, the cat that hides before earthquakes, the backyard birds that change their feeding patterns before severe weather arrives. These familiar animals may be providing us with disaster prediction services that we simply need to learn how to recognize and interpret. This brings us to the most important message of our exploration. Every person has the opportunity to become part of a global animal disaster prediction network. By learning to observe and understand the behavior of the animals around us, we can contribute to our own safety and potentially help protect our communities from natural disasters. The key is developing the knowledge and awareness necessary to distinguish between normal behavioral variations and the specific patterns that indicate approaching catastrophes. For those who share their lives with pets, this means paying attention to unusual behaviors that might indicate your animals are detecting environmental changes you cannot sense. When your dog refuses to go on a normal walk, when your cat seeks unusual hiding places, when your pet birds become agitated for no apparent reason, these behaviors might be worth noting and considering in the context of potential natural disasters. Keep a simple journal of unusual pet behaviors, noting the date, time, and weather conditions, and see if patterns emerge that correlate with subsequent natural events. For those who live in rural areas or have regular contact with farm animals, the opportunities for disaster prediction observation are even greater. Farmers and ranchers throughout history have relied on animal behavior to predict weather changes and natural events, and this traditional knowledge remains valuable today. Learn to recognize the signs that livestock display before storms, earthquakes, and other natural events. Observe how different species respond to environmental changes, and consider how this information might be used to improve safety for both animals and humans in your area. Urban dwellers can participate in animal disaster prediction by becoming more aware of the wildlife that exists in cities and suburban areas. Pay attention to bird behavior, noting changes in feeding patterns, flocking behavior, and vocalizations that might indicate approaching weather changes or other natural events. Many cities have substantial populations of urban wildlife that could provide disaster prediction services if we learn to observe and interpret their behaviors. The growing availability of smartphone technology and social media platforms creates unprecedented opportunities for citizen science participation in animal disaster prediction research. Consider downloading apps that allow you to contribute observations of animal behavior to scientific databases. Share your observations of unusual animal behaviors on social media platforms, where they might be noticed by researchers or other community members who can help interpret their significance. Educational institutions at all levels have important roles to play in advancing animal disaster prediction research and awareness. Elementary and secondary schools can incorporate animal behavior observation into their science curricula, teaching students to observe and record the behaviors of local wildlife and domestic animals. This hands-on approach to science education could help develop a generation of citizens who are more aware of the natural world around them and better prepared to recognize the warning signs that animals provide. Universities and research institutions should continue to invest in animal disaster prediction research, recognizing that this field represents a valuable complement to traditional disaster monitoring technologies. The integration of biological and technological monitoring systems offers the potential for more accurate, reliable, and comprehensive disaster prediction capabilities than either approach can achieve independently. Government agencies responsible for disaster preparedness and emergency management should consider incorporating animal behavior monitoring into their existing early warning systems. This integration does not require abandoning existing technological approaches, but rather supplementing them with biological information that could provide additional warning time and improve prediction accuracy. International cooperation will be essential for advancing animal disaster prediction research. As natural disasters cross political boundaries and many animal species migrate across multiple countries, the sharing of research data, monitoring technologies, and traditional knowledge about animal behavior could accelerate progress in this field and improve disaster preparedness on a global scale. The traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples around the world represents an invaluable resource for understanding animal disaster prediction. Many indigenous cultures have sophisticated systems of environmental observation that include detailed understanding of animal behavior patterns and their relationships to natural events. Collaborative research projects that combine traditional ecological knowledge with modern scientific methods could lead to significant advances in disaster prediction capabilities. As we move forward into an era of increasing climate change and environmental uncertainty, the ability to predict natural disasters becomes more critical than ever. Rising sea levels, changing weather patterns, and increased geological activity associated with climate change will create new challenges for disaster prediction and preparedness. Animal behavior monitoring systems may prove particularly valuable in this changing environment, as biological systems can adapt to new conditions more rapidly than technological systems can be reprogrammed and recalibrated. The economic benefits of improved disaster prediction through animal behavior monitoring could be enormous. Natural disasters cause hundreds of billions of dollars in damage annually worldwide, and the human costs in terms of lives lost and communities disrupted are incalculable. Even modest improvements in disaster prediction capabilities could save thousands of lives and billions of dollars in property damage, making investments in animal behavior monitoring research highly cost-effective. Perhaps most importantly, learning to observe and interpret animal disaster prediction behaviors reconnects us with the natural world in ways that can enrich our lives beyond disaster preparedness. Developing awareness of animal behavior patterns helps us become more observant and mindful of our environment, creating deeper connections with the other species that share our planet. The animals around us are constantly monitoring their environment for changes that might affect their survival, and they are generous in sharing this information with anyone who learns to observe and understand their signals. By paying attention to the remarkable capabilities of our animal companions and neighbors, we can tap into a disaster prediction network that has been operating successfully for millions of years. The next time you see birds gathering in unusual numbers, notice your pet acting strangely, or observe farm animals displaying restless behavior, remember that you might be witnessing one of nature's most sophisticated early warning systems in action. These animals are not just living their lives, they are constantly monitoring their environment and providing valuable information about conditions that affect us all. Take a moment today to observe the animals around you more carefully. Start a journal of their behaviors. Share your observations with others. Become part of the growing community of people who are learning to read the signs that animals provide. In doing so, you will not only improve your own preparedness for natural disasters, but you will also contribute to our collective understanding of one of nature's most remarkable phenomena. The conversation between humans and animals about environmental conditions has been going on for as long as our species have coexisted. It is time for us to become better listeners in this ancient dialogue, learning to hear and understand the warnings that our animal neighbors have been trying to share with us all along. The lives and property saved through improved disaster prediction could include your own, your families, and your communities. The animals are ready to help. We simply need to learn their language.